We're just waiting for people to join. Should we give it a couple of minutes, guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we've got a few come in now as well. Okay, we'll just give it another minute and we'll get cracking. Okay, Ross, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Tony, hear me all right?
Loud and clear.
Good stuff. All right, I think let's get cracking because I think we've got a fair few people in here now. So firstly, thanks everyone for joining. My name's Asif. For those of you that I've not met before, I lead the CP Digital business and my colleagues Ross and Tony are joining me today for this webinar. We're doing this in collaboration also with our sort of tech and high growth colleagues. And so for those of you that are working at scale ups or from venture funds, welcome to this webinar on how digital transformation, ERP, CRM can drive higher exits in portfolio companies. To give you a bit of background on Cooper Parry, for those of you that are not familiar, we are one of the private equity backed accounting firms. We've grown substantially in the last 3 years since I've been here, having made just shy of 20 acquisitions in that time, which is pretty crazy. And in that time, we've organized this business across 3 main verticals. So we have the professional services business, which most of you will associate Cooper Parry with anyway. So typically accounting, tax, deals, corporate finance, that sort of thing. Our second priority is our wealth management business, where we own a number of wealth management capabilities. And the most recent was started about just over a year ago, called Cooper Parry Digital, where we are putting together effectively a digital consulting business that spans various capabilities across ERP, CRM, cybersecurity, digital consulting, data and analytics, exclusively for the mid-market. So really to service the professional service client base that we've worked so hard to get up to now almost 10,000 clients, which is a pretty remarkable number. So today we wanted to give you a little bit of a presentation on how our integrated proposition, but also just how integrated propositions generally across ERP and digital transformation can be a real energy boost to scaling plans, particularly with those companies that are trying to target an exit or an IPO, and how actually some of those lessons we've learned ourselves on our journey. Cooper Parry itself is a Salesforce and NetSuite business, and so we can really speak from the front line in terms of how it's helped us. But also with the clients that we work with a number of funds, both venture capital and private equity, where they will be doing a lot of buy and build strategies, and sort of our integrated implementation and consulting approach has really sort of unlocked a new way and efficiency for those businesses to drive higher exits and higher multiples. So I'm going to hand over to Ross, who leads our NetSuite business, and he'll also then bring in Tony, who leads our Salesforce business, to talk a little bit about how we think about some of these things. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to stick them in the chat. I'll be able to pick them up from there. We can address them separately. And naturally, you'll have our contact details at the end of this also, if there's anything that you think about afterwards. So Ross, over to you.
Thanks, Asif. I'll jump to the next slide. I'm Ross. I'm the co-founder of Macrofin. We're Europe's leading NetSuite alliance partner. And my co-founder, Steve, and I both had accounting backgrounds, and we'd worked in senior finance roles, So we've been through the growth journey and the challenges of putting in scalable systems when on the client side. So that's allowed us to bring our finance and real world experience to technology projects. So we joined Cooper Parry in October last year and recently joined forces with 3RP, another of the UK's top NetSuite Alliance partners who joined CP Digital in April. And together we've completed over 230 NetSuite implementation projects in the last 5 years with 100% go live rate, getting every business live and transacting at go live. And that's about 3 to 4 times more than any other partner across the UK and Europe. And over 120 of these have been clients moving from systems like Xero to NetSuite. And in recognition of that, we've been awarded between the two of us 8 NetSuite Partner of the Year awards.
Thanks, Ross. And hi, thanks for joining today. Myself, Tony DiCarlo, I'm one of the co-founders of CloudOrca. We were acquired in August of 2024 by Cooper Parry. And we lead the Salesforce consulting practice, where we are certified in every single Salesforce module and product. We've completed over about 350 projects over the last 7-8 years with a CSAT score of 4.98 out of 5. We typically work in a few different industries, and financial services and fintech being a really strong point for us, as well as healthcare, high tech, and professional services. As well as the Macrofin team, we've been awarded 5 Salesforce Partner Awards over the years.
Thanks, Tony. We jump on to the next slide. So I want to talk about how the right systems drive growth and then ultimately the exit value for the business. And we've broken that down into 5 key areas. So the first one being integrated tech that functions as one solution. What this means is removing the need for duplicated data and having to manage that data and inconsistencies in an accuracy which makes it more difficult to forecast and report. And having these in place helps then drive higher productivity across your teams from less manual work and drive growth and profit in your business. And having these scalable platforms also signals operational maturity to potential investors. Investors are expecting best of breed technology to support that growth. For example, if it's a heavy M&A activity business, you can bolt on new subsidiaries quicker onto these platforms, which reduces the manual reporting. Also, as businesses scale, their volumes and billing complexity tend to increase, and you want a flexible technology that can scale with you. And investors are looking for a platform that will grow with you, so that you don't need to go back and review your tech stack again in the future because you've picked the right platforms to grow. So looking for businesses that already have this scalable tech in place, and that also removes the need for that to be a project and a piece of work that needs to happen post-acquisition. And around the revenue growth or optimized sales targets, so with the right CRM tech optimized for your running your full sales end-to-end process, you're more likely to know your conversion rates and win rates and what you need to do to increase the probability of a win. For example, if you've got Salesforce in place, some of the insights it can share with you is a lot of insights around your opportunities. And it could be, for example, an opportunity that multiple stakeholders in your business are talking to this one customer. You might be identifying from your insights that you can increase the win rate of that opportunity by 40% if you engage with these 2 different stakeholders to strategize approach to sell to that customer, rather than having siloed departments in your business, each working with that customer independently and not being joined up on the products and services that you're selling. Or it could help with something such as looking at your pipeline, the days age of the deals in your pipeline. If they're over 90 days, for example, perhaps the win rate reduces, so you can get insight into that to drive improvements there. Having the clean data also supports the due diligence outcome, so gets the due diligence completed quicker with fewer surprises. Your investors will have increased confidence in your numbers, and fewer things will come out of the woodwork which could reduce the valuation. Having these systems in place will allow the reports to come out accurately, to be able to answer the questions quickly. And that also takes the pressure off the founders or the management team from having to spend so much time on the due diligence to actually focus on running the business, growing the business, hitting the targets. That's the key thing that could impact your valuation if that time distraction is too great and you miss sort of targets that you've set as part of the valuation. And then around the customer retention, so it's great to have that insight around all the products and services that you're offering your customers, so you can then look at what cross-sell and upsell opportunities you have, or understand the satisfaction of that customer in your group, so you can work on retention strategies. All right, next slide, please.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ross. What's the impact of having this technology implemented within your business? And I think we've got 4 kind of high levels of stats here, which we'll drill into later on in this discussion. But we see typically 60% cost savings achievable through migrating to cloud platforms such as Salesforce and NetSuite, and it also optimizing the internal infrastructure at the companies. 25% of UK employees' time is lost daily to inefficiencies and disconnected systems. And from that could be really, think about the inefficient processes that might be there, the disparate systems, as we mentioned, data duplication, and so on and so forth. 23% really a reduction in staff churn through integrated technology and improving that digital experience, and 26% higher profitability and EBIT increases that can be achieved through mature cloud-based systems. And we'll drill into these later on in this discussion as well in a bit more detail. Next slide, please.
This is a typical SME tech stack that we see perhaps by a VC-backed business or early stage PE-backed business. So on the left, you have your finance system, various technologies that aren't talking to each other with all their own data sources. So you've got data overlapping on the finance side with the sales side. Could be contradicting data when it comes to reporting on revenue and sales, having that one source of truth, or multiple duplicate customer records. So you're not getting that insight into each customer as like a single record in the system, which creates the need for mapping tables, Excel, lots of importing manually between the systems. When you have an ERP and a CRM in place, you have 2 main data sources, ERP for finance and revenue, and CRM for the sales and customer data. So on the finance side, often as a business is growing, we see multiple instances of Xero or QuickBooks, and they need spreadsheets to consolidate that information, analyze the data, and then sort of VLOOKUPs through like master data lists. And on the sales side of it, you get many different versions of the truth as well when it comes to the sales insights compared to the revenue that finance is producing. And for example, like something I've experienced myself is when you're then trying to do marketing using a tool such as MailChimp, send out email shots, all those click-throughs and insights that are coming through become quite isolated if they're not then stored in the CRM. So you're in the process of having to export all your contacts and customers into a tool like MailChimp, manage the list of subscribers there, and that doesn't automatically pull back into your CRM. So a lot of manual duplication, manual handling of the data. And then when it comes to integrations in these tech stacks, some of these tools do have very good out-of-the-box integrations, for example, between Xero and HubSpot. And Xero and HubSpot are good systems for what they do. But they do have the scale limitations. And we've found that integrations often only cover basic scenarios. You need to build custom integrations to cover more complex use cases in your business. So while integrations can work if it's sort of simple use cases, often it can then extend into customization or data missing, complex orders or subscriptions, usage billing, professional services. These things don't map through between the CRM and the finance without the need for manual intervention. And some of the trigger points we see that are key time to move. It's when your business is looking to scale, and as business grows, Xero can struggle to handle the larger transaction volumes and data processing needs, or complexity in the billing and revenue, or inventory and supply chain. And around the user and employee capacity, so a tool like Xero is ideal for smaller teams, but scaling your workforce can then create limitations in the system's capacity to handle multiple users, managing the access to different parts of the systems for proper governance. And a really common one we see is global expansion. As you want to expand, you would deal with multiple companies and subsidiaries in your group and multi-currency challenges. So a tool like Xero's strength is single company accounting, but when you're acquiring and expanding, you want a tool that can handle all that complexity of multiple subsidiaries with one still central data source of truth, which is great where like an enterprise or mid to enterprise level tool like a NetSuite or Salesforce come into play. All right, next slide, please. This is just what the ideal would look like then if you do put these 2 tools in place that you pick as your next step up platform. You'll have very seamless integrations between the 2 with these 2 sets of data sources talking to each other with unique data sets to avoid that need for duplication and manual work to manage the 2 systems. Next slide, please.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. So some of the exit readiness indicators that we see day in, day out. So the first one being financial transparency. The one key thing that investors do look for is transparency in the financials. Can you consistently, confidently report on ARR, MRR, EBITDA, cash flow in real time? And having platforms such as Salesforce and NetSuite integrate together not only gives you the clarity you need, but also removes the need for those spreadsheets or lagging reports. You've actually got investor-ready dashboards at your fingertips. That obviously builds confidence and often commands a premium multiple. Next is audit readiness. So in an exit, due diligence can be smooth and quick. It can be painful. It can be drawn out. Clean data typically does make a big difference. Again, having the likes of Salesforce and NetSuite kind of integrated, Salesforce integrated with your GL and your finance stack, you can automate those reconciliations. You ensure the compliance is built in. You create really a single version of the truth. That reduces friction in DD, shows your buyers you're running a professional and a completely scalable operation. Forecasting confidence. Investors want predictability. They're typically pay more for a business that can accurately forecast revenue and pipeline conversion. Reduces risks from a buyer, which again, it does support higher valuations and what we see. And finally, customer insights. Beyond the financials, investors want to know, is your growth sustainable? Having that 360-degree view of your customer, and whether that's tracking retention, whether that's upsell, engagement, you can evidence not only how many customers you're winning, but how you're keeping them and how often you're keeping them. But also, how are you expanding on them as well? That really gets investors excited. Sustainable growth levers, and not just kind of one-off sales, ultimately. Next slide, please.
So now we're going to talk about the actual process for implementing the systems, and so the pros and cons of doing them separately or together joined up as a one overall project. So what we often see as a usual process is two separate work streams, one for the ERP and one for the CRM, led by different parts of the business. So the Salesforce or CRM piece might be led by head of sales and the IT team, and the finance piece led by the CFO and the finance, maybe the data and analytics team. And what you can typically see is each individual project will have its own life cycle, going through from scoping and planning it out, purchasing the right system, through to then designing your architecture and other tech stack you want around that piece of technology. And you'll work with a partner or professional service team to implement it. Your team will do the testing to give the all clear that it can go live, and then have the ongoing support. And if they're done independently, or perhaps separately, you're going to book them end to end. You could have a CRM project first go for 3 to 6 months, and then an ERP project starts at 4 to 6 months. Then potentially almost up to a year long to get those two live. And then you've got the integration project, which could be another 3 to 5 months. So you're looking at a long cycle there, up to 18 months or more to sort of get the benefit from the two systems talking to each other. But a challenge what's more important if you do it separately, is you end up working them separately with no ownership across the two systems. And then blame could start to materialize between the different teams and the different partners working on the team. That if something is not configured correctly upstream, that impacts downstream, or there's key dependencies on the timeline that could work, you're going to struggle with that accountability. And then when it comes to integrating the processes together, if you've not been in sync with the key client stakeholders contributing, for example, the finance team contributing to the design of the products and discount structure in the CRM to make sure it flows down and works with their reporting and invoicing and revenue recognition, you're going to have some challenges there if they're not engaged throughout both of the projects. You might get to a situation where when you come to integrate it, one of the team has to then go back and reconfigure their system again to make the integration work so that the logic and business process flows and workflows work seamlessly end to end. So that's creating duplication and a lot more effort to get both systems in a shape where they can be effectively integrated. So that's like a common challenge that you could see if they're not done together as one work stream. So you end up with this sort of no man's land in the middle of this integration piece not working as optimally as it could be, not really improving from the prior tech stack scenario I talked about. If we jump to the next slide, Tony will talk about what good can look like.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ross. And the way to overcome this is, one partner, one project, and ultimately one solution. And we remove that no man's land that Ross just spoke about. NetSuite and Salesforce are configured in such a way that they can be easily integrated. And I think that's really a key point to note there. As one project, we're configuring these in parallel with each other. Stakeholders are always engaged at the right time. And the project management is by one team. We ensure all work streams are then hitting their go live at the correct time. Ross, anything else you want to add to that point? But I think that's kind of the kind of 3 or 4 overall points in terms of having that one partner over and one project and one solution.
Yeah, no, I agree, Tony. It'll fix many of the challenges that we've encountered over the years implementing NetSuite, where we've seen the Salesforce work stream happening either overlapping or has happened previously. And then that a lot more extra work and duplication of decisions to configure it correctly and then have a seamless integration on day one. The ideal is the team can do full testing, starting in the upstream CRM system and following perhaps like a quote through to an estimate to an order, all the way through to billing and finance reporting and RevRec across the 2 systems in one end-to-end user acceptance testing phase.
Absolutely.
Right, so I think that's all we've covered as part of the structured discussion. So, Asif, over to you if there's any questions.
Yeah, there are a few questions already, and so I'll just sort of address them one by one. If anybody else had any questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A section. I have a question here which says, I see the SME stack. This SME stack often totally get the restrictions and overlap. But at a certain business size, there's still a substantial outlay to move to solutions like Salesforce and NetSuite. So where do you think is the size threshold for thinking about the next level up on the tech stack? So I guess probably a question for both, really. From the perspective of doing it as an integrated project would be a more specific lens.
Absolutely. I'd probably kick it off there, and Ross, maybe hand it over to yourself for some of that. I guess there's no real simple answer to that, right? I think ultimately it's not necessarily about size or revenue. And actually, in terms of the outlay, I think a lot of people are pleasantly surprised when it comes to commercial conversations with the likes of NetSuite and Salesforce. I think it's a slightly misconstrued kind of conception of what they price themselves into. But I mean, in terms of the number, I think for us, think about our crack starting to show internally. Right? Is your data concurrent? Is it in sync? Are you working in silos? I think rather than a specific size of company, it's all around how much efficiency how efficient are you working on your current platforms? And what can we do as a partner, Cooper Digital, to alleviate that and make your processes and operational, whether it's sales, finance, operations, marketing, customer service, how do we make that efficient and have one source of truth? Ross, I don't know if anything else you want to add from your experiences.
Yeah, from our experiences, typically, businesses that are about £5 to £10 million turnover and above is like often a trigger point. As I said, it could be lower revenue but expanding to multiple countries. So often look ahead at like what the growth plans are of the business, and if you do see complexity coming on the horizon from moving to other jurisdictions or more complex sales processes and products and pricing structures that you're building. So you want to assess that if you do have to scale your sales operations and finance teams to handle that volume, are you going to be adding headcount to your team? And that headcount cost is going to grow proportionately to the revenue as you grow. And if that's going to happen, you're throwing heads at it to handle the manual workload, then there's going to be a huge saving by having a real streamlined process, operational efficiency, by then reducing the manual work. It's more hands off, and the headcount doesn't have to scale at the same pace to drive the business. So I'd look at that as part of your investment business case. So the time to manage a web of different smaller systems that, to be fair, are a lot often cheaper than the NetSuite or Salesforce price point, but it is the manual headcount and time that will come into play that you'll save a lot on.
Good stuff. We have another question here, and actually one that maybe both of you could speak from personal experience, actually, which is, could you talk more about how the integrated solution impacts multiples? and what are the specific factors that investors take into account? Have you seen companies get higher multiples during an investment and exit, and if so, how? So, both, I suppose, from your own experiences, but also from some of the private equity-backed businesses that you've seen go to exit or go through an exit process. Could you maybe speak to that a little bit, maybe starting with Ross?
Yeah, sure. I don't know, for myself, going through the acquisition, we're operating on NetSuite as well. So the Cooper Parry had very high confidence in our numbers because we could produce accurate forecasts, accurate revenue recognition, segmented analysis of our customers. So helped in that negotiation process. I think some of the other sort of factors similar to what we talked about before, but having like that clean single source of truth, because then the buyer wants confidence in the pipeline, bookings, revenue, and financials to ensure they all reconcile. They can then sort of see stronger revenue visibility, and then the operational efficiency factors as well. It's hard to put like an exact number to it, but we have spoken to our customers who have been through the process once they've been live on NetSuite for 12 months and just spoke about how they could get all this insights out of the business, accurate forecasting, and a high confidence from their investors. So it's hard to put a quantity of what that does drive in terms of extra multiple numbers, but definitely the feedback I've got is that it has greatly assisted getting through that due diligence.
Yeah, and it's worth also mentioning in my role is that we probably have the highest request for an integrated solution with our corporate finance team, because they are, when they're doing diligence on the vendor side, or if they are entering into a process with one of their companies, then this vertical is really one that they like to drill down on, whether they're on the buy side or on the sell side. If it's on the sell side, they really drill down it from the perspective of being value accretive. If the numbers are transparent, if analysis can be done without too much complexity. And on the flip side, when they're on the buy side, they working with us to try and understand where the pitfalls might be from a finance stack perspective, because then they use that as an ability to possibly look for valuation chips. So there's a bit of a sort of triangulation there of experiences there, both from the M&A that we do ourselves, but also the M&A that we advise as a professional services house. So hopefully that answers your question. Tony, a specific question on Marketing Cloud. Is it too much for an SME, apart from perhaps e-commerce businesses, to take on Salesforce Marketing Cloud?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and my answer would be not at all. Actually, if anything, we do a lot more implementation of Marketing Cloud outside of e-commerce businesses, whether it's fintechs, financial services, companies, technology platforms, and so on and so forth. I'd always say evaluate Salesforce Marketing Cloud. There's numerous different options now within the different ranges, and for sure they're priced at different price points. And SME is obviously and mid-market being a key market for Salesforce in general. But yeah, more than happy to have a chat offline about that question.
Okay, and as a follow-up for that, I suppose, to Ross, do you recommend Salesforce Field Service over NetSuite Field Service Management?
Oh, I unfortunately don't have a view on that. I've not seen the Salesforce Field Service in action to comment on that one myself, but I would like to see it and compare the two. The team at 3RP have worked with NetSuite's Field Service Management module quite frequently, so they're very familiar with it, but not had a chance to compare it yet. Not sure, Tony, if you have a view.
No, I think that's a really good question, and to your point, Ross, I haven't seen NetSuite's Field Service in action. But again, Salesforce has a really robust field service platform. What I would say to this question is, this is what we're here for, right? As one partner, is to understand your pain points, what you're looking to achieve, and also put forward the best recommendation for that requirement.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, it might be worth just speaking a little bit to how the consultancy business right now is just working on a sort of free of charge basis for some of our clients to understand these challenges. I don't know, Ross, whether you can maybe speak to a few examples of recent conversations that we've had with clients that are in this sort of awkward phase, right, of wanting to take the plunge from a cost perspective and a time commitment perspective, and what those sort of consultancy conversations have unearthed as a result to either help or support those decisions.
Yeah, so as part of the life cycle of picking a system, say this example, like an ERP, you've got to do that preparation readiness work up front. So we offer a service which we used to call the pre-ERP service. That's a consulting service. We can come in and talk to you about the current tech stack that you're using, what your plans are and what pain points are. And we can help plan out that roadmap of technology that you would need. Over the 6 years we've been working as a NetSuite consultancy, we've worked with many of the other different partners in the ecosystem that have modules that connect in with the ERPs and CRM. So we're very, very well versed in this technology that does set you up to scale. And so, for example, you might find that your real pain point right now is expense management and your AP process. And so you're on Xero and these other smaller tools. That's your pain point. We can help plan this roadmap for you to go, you'll get the biggest bang for your buck if we focus on that first, introduce you to some of the top partners in that space that we vouch for, we've seen work well with our customers. We know they've got a very good integration into the ERP. And that way, if you are thinking NetSuite is a product you need in 12 to 18 months time, let's get like an AP expense tool that works well now with Xero, but then we also know there's a very good integration with the ERP, so that when you do move to the ERP, you don't need to replace that expense tool. So we can come in, provide this service, free of charge service, as Asif said, to help plan out this technology roadmap, sequence it, so you don't have to go back and do rework later on. And as part of that, we can help you assess the different vendors that are out there. Platforms like Salesforce and NetSuite, they can do many different things really well. But if you've got like a real specific use case, you want like the best in breed technology, it might be best to pick a specialist software solution to do that part and integrate that into the central tool. So we can definitely help plan out that journey for you.
Yeah. And just on the same point, I guess, Ross, we have another question here, which is what sectors are NetSuite's sweet spot, and where would you consider it not the ideal solution? So thinking pure tech business versus maybe a consumer tech business with manufacturing, etc. So sort of on this spectrum of complexity of business, where would you sort of say is NetSuite's sweet spot versus not?
Yeah, so it covers like many industries really well. So software with like SaaS and subscriptions, fintech, services, that's been the real area of focus. Macrofin's been in over the years, so it's really strong in this space. And then across retail, e-commerce, so wholesale distribution, travel, waste management, non-for-profit organizations, really strong in that space as well. So where I'd say where it probably pushes its limitations is quite complex manufacturing. It's got like a very strong manufacturing module, but it's going very complex. It's probably a situation you might want to explore like the best tool in that space. But otherwise, for all other industry verticals, it's got very good solutions that can cover all. But it's really important if you are assessing the system, you get an industry specialist in who can then talk about like the other tools in that ecosystem and who understand your full process flow and how you operate. So you can advise the best way to configure the ERP or the CRM, and also what other tools we recommend plug in that integrates nicely. So you need someone with a real industry focus to talk about everything else in the journey rather than just focusing on just how you configure the system.
Yeah. And I suppose, Tony, similarly, I know we've kind of always talked about how Salesforce is typically synonymous with CRM, but actually it's so much more than that now. And so, would you sort of say that there are sweet spots of sectors that people should consider Salesforce or using Salesforce for, or is it, sort of more wide ranging than that now?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think Salesforce is very much a lot more wide range now. You have industry clouds, there's financial services cloud, you have health and life sciences cloud, manufacturing cloud, and these are the consumer goods cloud, for example. These are all clouds built specifically for certain industries, but you also have the core products such as your sales cloud and customer service, which is called Sales Cloud. But I think one of the questions earlier around marketing cloud is now, 6 or 7 slightly different products now that we're able to kind of implement from a marketing standpoint. And this is before we even talk around AI. Right, obviously with Agentforce and so forth, and they're really moving to that kind of agentic model. So very, very wide kind of industry focus from a Salesforce point of view. But I'd say in terms of where, to the question earlier, where it maybe not a fit would be more for the financial side of things in terms of the data, i.e. why you have the likes of NetSuite, and maybe inventory management. Again, where an ERP or an MRP might come into play from a stock inventory point of view.
Brilliant. Okay. I think that's all the questions, unless anybody has a last minute question that they'd like to drop into the chat. And if you are considering doing that, I will just say that Ross and Tony's contact details, I suppose, are on this slide. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to either to Ross, Tony, myself, anybody within the Cooper Parry team here that is hosting. As Ross mentioned earlier, both on the ERP side, CRM side, and frankly, whether it's integrated or not integrated as a process for you, if you did just want to have a friendly chat around how we're thinking about some of these things, or how we would recommend you should be thinking about some of these things, then again, feel free to reach out to us. So one question we've got, I suppose, before we will wrap, is pre-Oracle acquisition, NetSuite advisors did not advise customization or bolting onto other systems. I hear that is no longer the case, and it is a lot more versatile in terms of customization and working with other specialist software. Do you have a view on that, Ross?
Yeah, I do. So when Steve and I started Macrofin, we decided to specialize in NetSuite for this reason of how flexible and customizable it is. We'd worked with SAP, Financial Force, Microsoft, and other products. And from our experience on the client side, it was that ability to customize the system with custom fields, segments reporting, and really good technology with the open APIs to build integrations, either using like an iPaaS or like a direct connection. So the recommended approach we take is to get the best value out of the system, go with leading practices where you can. And NetSuite has created NetSuite success packages of the best practice for your industry based around whether you're a software business, an inventory business, a retail business. So you take that leading practice for your core process areas. We can hit the ground running quickly, get you live quickly, get the value through an MVP approach, and then work on customizing, enhancing the system as you grow, and the system will grow with you. So it's really powerful for that. So my advice would be, yes, customize it, but in phase one, go for an MVP where you can, lean on the leading practices, get your team used to using the system. We find and recommend your own team will be better at telling a consultancy what they want when they've had a chance to use the system first for a while and see what comes out of the box, what native functionality it has, and they're better able to describe what they need, what their requirements are, so a consultancy they can go away, come up with your new process and technical requirements to customize it. That's my approach. So definitely real strength, but do it in stepped phases. You get the most value from the system. It de-risks the project as well. You get your return on your investment sooner because you'll start to see value earlier on from the licenses that you're paying Oracle NetSuite.
Yeah, and I know you guys will have a view on this question, but what middleware software do you prefer when integrating the systems?
Yeah, so our preference is a tool called Orchesis, which we recently acquired through 3RP. So it's a middleware that's a managed service. So we design the integration, connect it to whatever tool you want to connect into NetSuite, and then we support and manage that integration for you, whether that's from customizing, enhancing with new fields, or just monitoring the information that's flowing through to track any errors to unresolve those so nothing gets stuck in the processing queue. So really competitive offering that we now have over some of the other tools that are out there. Yeah,
Tony, any views on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think to Russ's point, Orchesis has obviously been a great platform. I guess from our point of view as well, another option would be MuleSoft. Again, we are implementing that over the years now, and actually with Cooper Parry as well. But as we're very much a MuleSoft first company, so yeah, there are a couple of different options there. Yeah, it'll come down to kind of the use cases themselves, and we can obviously then put forward the best recommendation for you.
Brilliant. Okay, well, with that, then I think I'd like to say thanks to everybody that joined. Hopefully you found that useful. We'll be running a number of sessions like this, monthly, I would imagine. We also have a few in-person sessions coming up, and I'm sure we can send you the details of that after this as well. If anyone's would like to join some of the conversations that we're having around these topics, as well as AI, cybersecurity, and various other topics that we know specifically affect our clients and sort of mid-market space in general. And like I said, if you have any other questions after this, feel free to reach out to any of us that are on this call. And I wish you a good afternoon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.